Most people are not surprised if their brakes squeak when applying pressure to the pedal. Typically, it just means that the brake pads need to be changed. But what does it mean when a squeaking sound is heard while driving but no brakes are applied? It's possible that this has nothing to do with one another. All potential causes are covered in this video. We also consider how to eliminate the squeaking noise for a quieter ride. Therefore, we begin with the causes of the squeaking noise before moving on to the solution. It's the Car Problems YouTube channel. Subscribe and let's get started. Causes: stuck brake caliper. The system's main component is the brake caliper. Calipers are a component of the assembly and house the brake pads. A car's brakes will always be applied if the caliper gets stuck, which may cause squeaking noises. The caliper may be stuck, which will cause the car to pull to one side. The constant rubbing could heat up the rotors if you keep driving in this manner. A fire may start in rare circumstances. Rust or inactivity are the two main causes of caliper seizing. This issue gets worse if you keep your car in storage for an extended period of time. Low-quality brake pad or rotor. There are numerous types of brake pads. Both affordable, value-based brakes and pricey, top-of-the-line options are available. The mid-range brakes typically perform best in studies comparing cheap versus expensive brake pads. The cheap type might squeak, while the pricey options might not be worth the extra money. To reduce noise, you should choose high-quality rotors. For greater protection against corrosion and rust, choose some that are coated or zinc-plated. Before selecting a set of brake pads or rotors, we advise reading customer reviews. If they are noisy, other customers will let you know. Engine noise. It's entirely possible that the noise has nothing to do with the brake system. Perhaps you can actually hear the engine area noise. Squeaking is unavoidable when a belt starts to slip or an internal failure takes place. You shouldn't drive if the noise is coming from the engine until you identify the issue. Stone stuck between brake shield and rotor. It's common for debris to be thrown up on the road as you drive. One of the most frequent contaminants entering the brake system is tiny pebbles and stones. It's common to hear a squeaking sound when a stone or acorn gets stuck in the brakes. The debris can harm the brakes if it isn't cleaned up. You should start working on fixing it right away because of this. Avoid driving on dirt roads to prevent getting debris stuck in the brakes or tires. Choose the smoother route if you can choose between it and a more challenging one. If you live on a dirt road, you should anticipate this issue to come up more frequently. Rusty brake rotors. When it's time to stop the wheels from rotating, the brake pads clamp to the brake rotors, which are the discs. The rotor may occasionally develop surface rust, which is not a big deal. This kind of rust is removable. However, pitting and damage may happen when the rust is allowed to remain on the rotor, which can cause a squeaking noise. You need to drive your car a lot if you want to avoid rust. Keep your car out of the rain when you're not using it by parking it in a garage. It's also a good idea to hit the brakes a few times after you start driving to try and dry them out. Loose brake dust shield. The brake dust shield performs precisely as it should. Its purpose is to shield the brakes from the dust that comes with everyday life. The system is less susceptible to damage from dust when the brakes are covered. The shield may come off due to the excessive vibration. It bumps into the rotor as it rattles, which can cause a squeaking sound. Transmission noise. Typically, there won't be any squeaking from the transmission. Some of the noises it makes, though, could be mistaken for squeaks. For instance, the transmission fluid can begin to whine when it is low. This is frequently mistaken for squeaking. In either case, you shouldn't ignore any transmission noises. How to fix. It's time to act when you hear the squeaking sound. By resolving the issue now, you can avoid a lot of issues in the future. Before beginning, refer to the factory service manual for your vehicle. Continue with these steps. Drive forward and backward. The problem can be resolved most quickly by repeatedly moving the car forward and backward. This might be sufficient to pry anything stuck in the brakes or wheels loose. After some driving around, you can try to move the debris yourself if it still isn't moving. Just be careful not to overforce any of the priceless parts because you don't want to do any more harm. Inspect the brakes. It's time to conduct a thorough brake inspection if debris isn't the problem. To see if the calipers are seized, inspect them. If so, this repair must be made right away. Additionally, check the brake pads and rotors for corrosion and rust. If so, go ahead and swap them out for a pair of high-quality shoes. Inspect the engine for noises. You are prepared to inspect the engine once the other diagnostics have been completed. When the engine is running, pay close attention to the sound to determine its source. The squeaking is most likely coming from a belt. If you notice that, you should replace it right away to prevent further damage. Inspect transmission. You ought to examine the transmission after you have finished your inspection. Finding problems with the trans is difficult without a lot of equipment and expertise, but you can examine the fluid. Fill it up if necessary before continuing to drive the car. Additionally, it needs to be replaced if it appears worn out or burned. Contact a professional. Reach out to a local expert if the diagnosis or repair seems to be more complicated than you can handle. Hope the information was useful for you. If so, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel.